Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. Had my first morph litter born a few weeks ago, which was a Marron jungle crossed with another Marron jungle. Today I want to give you guys an update on these babies. I'm going to show you each of the babies and tell you what the results of the cross were. Tell you a little bit about how you can predict the results of your own crosses. And then, since I've been getting a lot of questions about breeding jungles with other jungles, I'm going to address some of those. So please be sure to stay tuned for that. So first off, this is the mother of the litter. This is a Marron jungle, and she did great. She had a litter of just 6 babies. It wasn't a huge litter. Unfortunately, she had 8 slugs. So she gave birth a few weeks ago. You can see she's still pretty thin. She lost a lot of energy in that litter. So I fed her a couple times. She'll put the weight on hopefully pretty soon, but it's going to be another couple years before she breeds again. She just has to put the weight back on, but definitely quite a bit of a difference from now to before she had the litter. This female was paired up with a male Marron jungle from a different bloodline, and so both Marron and jungle are incomplete dominant genes, also referred to as co-dominant genes. But what this means is that if an animal has one copy of the gene, it has a visual phenotype. If it has 2 copies of that gene, the same gene, it has a different phenotype, which is called the superform. With the particular cross of a Marron jungle and a Marron jungle, there are actually 9 possible outcomes for the babies. And you can figure the results of any cross, by going to Morph Market, and there is a Boa genetics calculator that's very handy and helpful for morph breeders. And I'll put the link to the genetics calculator in the description below this video if you want to go check it out. But basically, you just input the identification of your particular Boa. In this case, it's a jungle Marron or Marron jungle. It's the same thing. It doesn't have to be in that particular order. Crossed with another Marron jungle. And then you hit enter and it will spit out the different types of Boas that could result and the statistical likelihood of each of the possibilities. And this is really a statistical likelihood. So some possibilities are more common or more likely than others. But basically, it's like flipping a coin. If you flip a coin 10 times, statistically you'll get 50% heads, 50% tails. But with any string of 10 flips, you could get 5 heads, 5 tails. You could get 6 heads, 4 tails. You could get 4 heads, 6 tails. You could even get 10 heads in a row. And although it's statistically pretty unlikely, it is possible. So whenever you have a cross, it's never going to, or it's highly unlikely to exactly meet the statistical likelihood. But this gives you an idea about the probability of each of these potential, genotype outcomes. But this gives you an idea about the statistical likelihood of each of these potential outcomes. And with the Marron jungle times Marron jungle, as I said, there were 9 possible outcomes. Being that I only have 6 babies in this litter, obviously I'm not going to have each of the 9 outcomes. In fact, I think I only have 3 of the 9 in the 6 babies that I produced, and I'll show you them in a minute with my close-up lens. Now you can see the results of the Morph Market prediction when I entered a jungle Marron crossed with a jungle Marron. And as you can see, each of the babies could receive 0, 1, or 2 copies of the jungle gene and 0, 1, or 2 copies of the Marron gene, which leads to the 9 possibilities you see there. You can also see that listed are the probability, both as far as a fraction and as a percentage. I have to bring up my cheat sheet on my iPhone just to keep track of this. You can also see that some of these possibilities are more likely than others. The most likely probability is 1 out of 4. So there's a 1 out of 4 chance that a baby would be a jungle Marron and have 1 copy of the jungle and 1 copy of the Marron. You can see that some of the possibilities, the least likely, is a 1 in 16 chance, or 6%. For example, the super jungle, super Marron, the double super, as well as the super Marron without jungle, or the super jungle without Marron, or the wild type with neither jungle nor Marron. It's all a 6% chance. And then you can see a 13% chance, or 1 out of 8. There's a few other possibilities there. So with that in mind, we're going to take a look at the babies. This first baby was a real standout, and this one is a super Marron jungle. And So this one has 2 copies of the Marron gene, 1 copy of the jungle gene. And as you can see, the most obvious characteristic of the Super Marron is all this red coloration. You can see how red this animal is and how the red just really pops out. Another characteristic are the dark eyes, and the Super Marrons have these darker eyes compared to their single copy Marron litter mates or counterparts. And you can see this animal has this aberrant pattern due to the jungle gene. You can see how the saddles have this kind of funky geometric shape, and some of them are kind of connected into this partial stripe. You can see some striping on the tail. The Marron also imparts a lot of white in the tail. You can see the enhanced white between the red and the black. And she's kind of moving around now, so you can see her whole body there. I'm just going to get some close-ups. There you can see the dark eyes characteristic of the Super Marron, as well as all that red and the really cool jungly pattern. So real knockout animal, and this one really made my jaw drop when I first saw her. And so Super Marrons are pretty rare. I could only find a few online as far as pictures. And when I looked on Morph Market, there was only one in the whole history of Morph Market, one single Super Marron that was listed, and it was actually another Super Marron jungle like this one. And that particular animal was actually sold, and then it was sold to another person, but it's the same animal listed twice on Morph Market. So Super Marron is kind of a rarity. You know, Marron has been around for a little while, but not a lot of people are working with Marron, so there just haven't been too many Super Marrons produced. But you know, we'll see what happens in the future with the Super Marron and the Marron project in general. As I've said before, I really like this gene and think it's really underrated, so hopefully it will become more popular. This next animal is a single copy Marron male with no jungle, so he's just a Marron. And you know, when I first saw him in the litter, I actually thought he was just a really nice wild type. But then after he shed, the pastel coloration from the Marron just became really obvious. This guy's got a lot of pink and purple on his sides, as well as this enhanced white in the tail. So a really nice looking animal. I like how this guy is just Marron, because sometimes when you have multiple genes, they kind of dilute the effect of each gene. So it's always nice to have a single copy gene animal, just so you can get a better idea of what the gene does. Here's a side shot of this Marron male, and hopefully that gives you a better sense of the coloration of the pastel pink and purple that you see on his side there as he's trying to exit the tub. But Marron is just this really cool genetic form of pastel, and Marron can really enhance any morph project with the enhanced coloration. The remaining 4 animals from the litter are all the same combo. These are jungle Marrons. They have 1 copy of the jungle gene, 1 copy of the Marron gene, and this female is just a knockout. Just love the look of this animal. You can see the jungly pattern. You know, the saddles are kind of pinched for the first 2/3 or so of her body. Then you can see some connected saddles and some striping, and then looking at that tail, you can see all the white between the blotches. So just a really beautiful looking animal. You can see the kind of pinkish purplish pastel coloration, especially on her sides. And I just think that the Marron and the jungle really go well together. There's another view of her. You can kind of see her sides better with that color. And then the jungle just really cleans things up. So just a really clean looking animal from the jungle gene. Nice Marron jungle female. Here's another Marron jungle female. And one of the cool things about the jungle gene is there's a lot of variations on it. And some animals have very subtle effects of the jungle gene, others have much more pronounced. A lot of people get confused about the jungle gene because in some cases it's kind of hard to tell in certain animals. And I actually did a video entitled The Enigmatic Jungle Gene, so check that one out if you want some more information. But this particular female, there's no doubt has the jungle gene. You can see the aberrancies in her saddles and the geometrically shaped saddles. Looking at that tail, you can see the blotches are kind of a little bit unusually formed. And you can, I love how the white and the red go together. I think, you know, the Marron also enhances the white in the tail. And then another giveaway that this is a jungle gene animal is looking at the side. You can see this two-toned appearance where the back is lighter and a little bit cleaner than the side. And then you can kind of see this stripe along her side that delineates the two-toned areas. But that's very common to see in the jungle gene. And looking below, right on her sides, below that stripe, you can see more of the pastel coloration from the Marron gene, this kind of peachy, pink, purple pastel coloration. So a really nice looking animal. I also have two male Marron jungles, so this is the first one. You can see this guy's kind of got a crazy looking pattern. You can see the striping and the aberrancies to the saddles, as well as that side stripe. And this one, the back has a little bit more of a busy pattern. And this guy overall looks a little darker, maybe more color saturated. And the Marron gene supposedly has two forms. There's a light Marron and a dark Marron, and I don't know exactly what causes each. I don't think it's the gene per se. It might be just what's in the animal's overall genetic background other than the Marron gene. But this guy just overall has kind of a darker appearance, and it makes the colors on the side look a little bit more deep and saturated. And there's a close-up shot showing you his side coloration. But you can see the color on the side and the aberrancies in the saddles. This guy's got a crazy looking tail as well, as you can see there. Last but certainly not least, we have one more male Marron jungle. And as you can see, this guy has kind of pinched saddles for the first half of his body, but they're not too aberrant. But then you can see this long stripe that continues to the tail, and then we can see some blotches on the tail. A really cool looking animal. This guy is also pretty clean. I'd say he's cleaner overall than his Marron jungle brother that I just showed you. And overall his colors are a little lighter than his brother, so I'm guessing this might be the light Marron phenotype. And there he is in profile. And you know, each of these four Marron jungles is a little bit different. Not sure which one I like the best. They all have kind of neat characteristics, but they all look subtly like both of their parents. And I'll show you the father in a sec here, but not sure if I'm going to keep one of these. I really like them, but we'll just have to see which, if any of these animals are going to be holdbacks for future breeders. I think that Super Marron jungle, I'm not going to be able to let that one go, but we'll just have to see about these other five. Now I want to show you the father of the litter. This guy is a Marron jungle, and this is similar to what some of the Marron jungle babies that we saw will look like when they hit, you know, adulthood, 5 years or old or so, as this guy is. And you can see this guy has got these kind of aberrant looking saddles, kind of pinched looking. He's got this kind of connected saddles here in this kind of chain link pattern, and then he's got the beautiful pastel, lots of oranges and reds and a little bit of purple shades. Looking at his tail, the Marron is noted to have this increased white in the tail and a kind of a thicker area of white between the red and the black blotches. And just a, you know, beautiful look overall. After I posted the original video with the birth of this litter, I got a lot of comments or questions about breeding a jungle animal to a jungle animal. So I wanted to finish up the video by responding to those. And one of the questions was something along the lines of, isn't it bad to breed a jungle to a jungle? So the answer is no, it's not bad unless the results of that cross are not something that you want to produce. And so I think what we're getting at is it unhealthy or deleterious to produce super jungles, you know, which is an animal that has two copies of the jungle gene, which we can see from the morph market calculator. There is a 1 out of 4 or 25% chance of producing with the Marron jungle crossed with the Marron jungle. And so I know that there are a number of morphs out there that are deleterious in the super form. The most common we talked about is called the super motley, where you have two copies of the motley gene. And these animals have a very dark appearance and typically only live for about a year or two. However, super jungle is not a deleterious combination. And super jungles, there are a lot of examples of perfectly healthy adult super jungles. There's even claims that some of them have reproduced, although this is still kind of up in the air. So some people have reported that the super jungles are a little more delicate than either regular jungles or non-jungles, and they might have more digestive issues. So for example, if you feed them too often, they might regurgitate, and this might lead to their death. So it might be a little bit more delicate. But you know, the same can be said with many lines of Suriname redtails, which are notorious for regurgitating, and of course we still breed those. Many people claim online that super jungles are not likely to be reproductive. They're either infertile or they're not able to give rise to successful litters. And this is still up in the air, since there are some claims online that there are proven super jungles available at certain suppliers, as well as people who said that they've bred super jungles. So I think it's kind of still up in the air, and we'll have to wait and see. But even if the super jungles aren't fertile, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't produce them. For example, mules, a hybrid of a horse and a donkey, of course, are infertile, but they're very useful animals to have. So I don't think that the fact that you can't breed a super jungle means that it's unethical or wrong or bad. But as I mentioned, the jury is still out as far as the fertility of the super jungles. If any of you guys have any experience with breeding jungles and producing super jungles, I'd love to hear it below. I know a lot of people read these reports on Facebook or some of the forums, and then they just kind of run with it. And unless you really have knowledge that you can really trust, that you've either produced yourself or it's from someone that you really know and trust, you really have to take it with a grain of salt. So we'll have to see what happens with jungles, whether a super jungle will eventually reproduce, or if this is indeed an infertile morph. And I should mention here that as far as super Marrons, as far as I can tell, there's no example of a super Marron having reproduced. However, this doesn't mean that they're not fertile or not able to reproduce. It just means it hasn't happened yet. And since there are so few super Marrons out there, it's really not all that surprising. But if I hold back my female super Marron, if she reaches breeding age and is in good health, of course I might try to breed her just to see if at least the female super Marrons can reproduce. But of course this will be at least 5 years down the road, so it's not going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. Before I forget, I just wanted to mention that some of the babies from this litter will be available to new homes. So if you're possibly interested in acquiring one, please stay tuned. It's going to be about 2 months or so before they're feeding and established and ready to go. But watching these videos is probably your best source of information on available animals. So if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it somewhat helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can shoot me a line or write them below. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your Boas.